This is Dan McCarty, four-time Stanley Cup champion, Detroit Red Wings, Lemieux killer, Stanley Cup winning goal guy. You're listening to SportsRadioDetroit.com.
SportsRadioDetroit.com.
We don't need TV to entertain us. He said anus.
I like
Very
it.
well said.
I like
Your
it a lot.
beard is still incredible.
It is. It's getting to that level of like.
Majestic, almost.
I'm excited about it now. I've finally reached that level that I'm proud of it.
My beard is so gross right now. Like I have pubes just glued to my face.
When the fuck did you have long leg hair?
Basically, almost all the specs I want.
You did not. You did have long leg. You look like Ringo Starr.
It looks so stupid. Smells like Cypress Hill concert in here.
I think Shakira is incredibly attractive. I think her music's terrible.
It's like it's just yodeling. It's yodeling.
Yeah, welcome. Out of Bounds Detroit Sports. David Faze, and this time Mike Tripp is an absentee. It's just that time of year.
We're having a rough go of it these last few weeks of trying to have a steady rotation.
Are you finally over your sniffles?
It was really only like a 36 hour, but I just was feeling so under the weather, man. I didn't want to put anybody else through that. So
you heard it there first on Facebook Live. Dave's just a little bitch. And we are invading your ear hole, as always, on SportsRadioDetroit.com, Apple Podcasts, or wherever the hell you listen to podcasts. And thank you for joining us on Facebook Live. I hope it's working properly. I think I see Roger's watching. He'll let us know if there's something wrong with the audio, I assume.
Is Roger going to tell me I look jacked again?
I got to tell you, I think that had to do with the camera. I don't know if that was. I don't know if that was you.
I don't know.
But
I just thought that was funny.
Roger wanted to get a room with you there for a minute. He really did. He thought you were looking good.
I even wore my tight underwear for the bonus speech.
True.
Anyway, I think the people by now listening to our show should probably know, where we're going to start. Because the goings on at Michigan State just continue to pile on, and
but the big news story of the day.
No. That's not how we're going to play this.
Ronda Rousey?
Did you not hear?
I'm just fucking with you.
Thursday show. We're going to work first, and then we're going to play.
Well, to answer your question, no, I didn't. But I know what you talked about. I didn't hear it. I have not had a chance to listen to it, but I know what you talked about.
We talked about the stepping down of Luana K. Simon.
Mm-hmm.
And then shortly thereafter, Mark Hollis retires, gets to collect a pension after lacking complete control over his athletic program,
right?
His entire athletic department. And I didn't even get a chance to go over on Thursday I guess you could call it a severance package for Luana K. Simon. She is literally receiving. Her life is actually better now.
Oh, she's set.
She's actually better now, not being president at Michigan State University. She still gets to collect over $500,000 in salary from the university. She gets to come back as a profession, as a teacher, should she choose to do so, which I think would be an awful move on her part.
Here's what I want to know about that, though. Too, to be honest, is that severance, because it looks bad? Is it with everything that happened and her basically, her saying, "Oh, I'm retiring," which is kind of the verbiage that both people used. But anyway, the whole severance package thing, I really am curious whether or not those are things that are agreed upon in that moment when the retirement paper or resignation paper, whatever, are signed, or if those are things that have been decided before, because it would make me feel ever so slightly better if that was something that was just in the work. And obviously, with the reason of why she was leaving, makes it look really, really bad. But if that's a deal they worked out at that particular moment last week and wrote all those things in, it's terrible.
No, it's the former. It's the first. It's negotiated into their employment contracts to begin with.
It makes me feel slightly better, but can't you rework those because of the situation? That's what I'd want to know.
But here's the thing. This is the catch-22. There's nothing Michigan State really can do legally to take these things away, because Luana K. Simon, as we know now, okay, now things could change after Bill Schuette's investigation.
Yeah.
But as we know right now, she broke no laws. Okay, she has.
True.
You've no reason. You've no legal standing to take any of these things away from Luana K. Simon. But here's the issue that we run into, and this is hopefully how we had hoped maybe the whole Penn State scandal would change things around the cultures in college campuses. But hopefully now that we've seen, as our buddy Ryan Schuling put it, the most prolific child molester in American history being able to run roughshod over this university, maybe now we'll start to change things like this as far as how presidents of universities get paid. Because here's the thing. When you have things like this written into your contract, how can you bear responsibility? Like, what's your risk as university president when you know that unless for whatever reason the university can find a reason to fire you or terminate your contract, which, by the way, the Board of Trustees doesn't have the power to do. They can ask her to step down.
Well, they're a whole other situation, but
I'm not even just talking about at Michigan State. I'm talking about at any university. If these are the systems put in place, something isn't working.
Yeah.
Because what responsibility does a university president have if these are the ways that their contracts are written to work at this university? What risk do you have? I mean, you could be a schnook eating bonbons in your fucking office all day and basically doing what Luana K. Simon did and just being a figurehead for the university. You get paid, $500,000 a year, and you got all this shit written into your contract to where you don't have anything to lose. The hell do you care?
I did actually think it was slightly funny, to be honest, when everything came out about what her severance package included. There were some people that legitimately were really pissed off that lifetime entrance into football games was included. And I was like,
oh, dude,
why the hell does that matter?
Dude,
that's what you care about?
Because there's all sorts of crazy shit written in. She basically, I don't remember how this works out, but she basically gets free IT support for the rest of her life. Like, stuff like this.
Her own personal Geek Squad.
Basically.
Yeah. Written
in. A full access to university systems and computers whenever she wants it. And so she has... like I said, she's better now. She doesn't even have the responsibility, so she's better off now than she was as president of the university.
She's probably still using a typewriter. She looks like she's straight out of a Virginia Woolf poem. She just looks so old and decrepit to me.
She actually kind of looks like an ugly Robert De Niro in this picture with her leather jacket on.
I think we just found Robert De Niro's next role. I think he just found it for him.
Robert De Niro is going to play Luana K. Simon
in the movie that will assuredly be made about this whole deal.
Oh, God. At least we can find some humor in Robert De Niro
and
playing.
Larry Nassar will be played by Phil Spector.
Yeah, that would make sense. That would make sense.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so when you have these types of systems written in and then you wonder why there's corruption going on, and you wonder why these presidents of these universities are more concerned with the university's image and the image of the athletic program and the success of the athletic program. Now, that's obviously all based on money, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Instead of student safety and education. And here's the other thing. Last I checked, Michigan State University is a state college. Am I wrong there?
That would be correct.
So, ipso facto, who's paying for this? Who's paying Luana K. Simon's salary?
We are.
You are, and I am. Michigan taxpayers are paying for this woman to basically go away.
To go home and sit on her couch and enjoy the bonbons, as you so eloquently described.
We're paying it. The kids that are paying tuition are paying it.
Yep.
This is where we are. And then Mark Hollis, able to retire. I think I'll just retire. Now seems like a good time to head off to Jackson Hole. Thanks for everything. Thanks for the pension.
Right before the article comes out.
Thank you, all these young women that were sexually molested by Larry Nassar. I appreciate all of you. But I'm going to go right off into the sunset with my dollars. And then what's her name? Kathy Klages sitting on a beach in Mexico somewhere. Incredible. Incredible that these people are going to walk away with this. Now, barring the Bill Schuette investigation, of course.
Well, I do think
it's going to be very difficult for him to find any criminal wrongdoing.
That Mark Hollis is a man who, I want to make sure I choose my words wisely, but I don't think he's a man that lacks integrity. And I don't think he is a man who most people would look at and think is, I don't think he had any criminal wrongdoing. However, clearly what happened was there was a blind eye turned to a lot of things. And the biggest issue, look, this is a guy who across the nation was looked at as one of the better ADs in all of college sports. He really was. He was amongst other ADs. They all thought very highly of him as an athletic director. He did a lot of great things at MSU, especially from a marketing standpoint. From a sports aspect, it's never been healthier.
But that all goes away now.
But now your reputation is inevitably, irrevocably marred, and his lack of basically he was way too soft in the important moments, and that's what bit him in the ass. That's what led to this.
I mean, you can say that, but here's the thing. People said this very, very similar things about Joe Paterno. Joe Paterno was a man of integrity. Joe Paterno didn't have any issues with his football players. Off-the-field issues. The Sandusky came thing out, and people, myself included, and by the way, I learned a serious lesson from that, myself included, right away, right at the very beginning, I defended Joe Paterno.
Right.
Quickly, my tune changed on that when some more facts came out. But just because these guys are seen as good guys or good women for a long time, something like this comes out, I'm sorry, that all goes out the window for me. Now, after the Bill Schuette investigation, if it turns out that Mark Hollis was just negligent, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm still going to be pissed at him for being negligent. But, I mean, right before the Outside the Lines article comes out, which we'll get into here in just a second, it came out that even today, after the Larry Nassar sentencing, Michigan State was still withholding documents, both from the athletic department and from the university itself. These two people are the ones that are responsible for that. So I understand how Mark Hollis was viewed throughout the nation as an athletic director for a very long time, but for me, right now, until I know a little bit more, that's thrown out the window for me. For me, Mark Hollis is just as culpable, and whether he's a good guy in his personal life or not, to me, it still makes him an asshole. So we'll see. It's far from over, as we've discussed many times. Now, as far as this Outside the Lines report on Michigan State, you read the written version, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and I think actually when we were texting about it on Friday, I think I at that point actually read more than Jeff had when we were texting back and forth. I had kind of gone through the whole thing.
Yeah. And ESPN aired a piece.
Which I have not seen.
It's basically everything.
It's the same stuff.
Everything that was in the written piece. And here's what I have to say about that. There is some good and some bad with what ESPN did with the Outside the Lines piece. I think that the bad is, I thought the timing was very convenient. I thought they did it for the wrong reasons, and the reason is because they didn't break any news. There was no news broken in that piece.
No.
Other than the one incident with Travis Walton.
Correct.
That was pretty new.
Correct.
Everything else in there was old news. So when Outside the Lines is going to conveniently, and when ESPN is going to conveniently drop this news the day after Larry Nassar is sentenced, there's only one reason they're doing that, and it's not to bring light to sexual assault at Michigan State or otherwise. It's to get ratings. Larry Nassar's in the news. Michigan State's in the news. How do we capitalize on this?
Sure.
That's the way I saw it. And that disappointed me a bit because I think that Outside the Lines is one of the few things that ESPN still does really well. Outside the Lines, E60, and 30 for 30. ESPN still does those things really well. Now, the good thing that came out of the Outside the Lines piece is that just because Larry Nassar is done with, we're not going to sweep everything else under the rug, because I like the idea of more questions being asked of more people at Michigan State.
Right.
So I like that it kind of carried that along.
Yes.
But I thought it was done very poorly, and I thought it was really bad journalism. I really did.
Well, and that's kind of segues me right into where I want to go with that discussion, which is that, all the stuff in regards to Mark Dantonio and the stuff in regards to the sexual assault issues associated with the football program, the majority of those situations are things that really have been public knowledge. It's not like they weren't breaking any type of big
the Appling
story.
and Adrian Payne ordeal.
Those are with Izzo and the basketball, but even football.
You're just talking about Dantonio.
Yeah,
right
for the moment. But the football stuff, that's why I don't really, the way that this has gone, the way this has come out, and the way that this has been directed. Everything the last 3-4 days, well, 3 days, I guess, since Friday. Everything the last 3 days has been all about what's the future of Dantonio and Izzo, right? How is this going to play out? Now, I will tell you right now, I think it's very unlikely that it's weird. I think it's very unlikely that Mark Dantonio loses his job over this, because I think the majority of the things that came out supposedly about his program weren't really new. It wasn't something that was new. It's not something that was being hidden. Now, are there going to be some situations that they might discover that were things not handled absolutely properly? Sure, that's going to all be part of the investigation. But
at the same time, Dave, I think you need to be careful. And here's why. Mark Dantonio said at least one pretty damning thing when he was asked about this, in saying that before this summer we had never dealt with anything like this before. That's a flat lie. That's not true. That's false. There have been other things that there were other things, particularly in 2009, that happened within that football program that, I don't know, did he just conveniently forget it? So here's the thing. Here's how I feel about the Izzo and Dantonio situation. I'm ready to sit here and just wait. But I think I got in a small tiff with some young lady on social media last night where she kept. I think it was after something that Ryan had posted, and I had commented on it, and regarding the questioning of Mark Dantonio and Tom Izzo. And Ryan had essentially said that he thinks it's fair game. And I agree. And here's why it's fair game.
And it is.
It's fair game because when you, as an institution of higher education, allow, I'll say it again, the most notorious child molester in the history of America to run roughshod over your university, and you lack institutional control in the athletic department, in the school itself, I think it is more than fair for the media to ask poignant questions to the two most high-profile guys at that university.
Well, the two most high-profile people left at this point.
And they were before, and they still are.
Yeah.
Because if you allow that to happen at your university, what else? What else is there? Now, maybe there is nothing else, and let's all hope and pray to God that there is nothing else. But I think it is more than fair to ask those questions and find out. So, Mark Dantonio and Tom Izzo both said some things when they were asked about everything here. And you know what? I'll get to that in a second. Let me get back to this argument. I got off track for a second. So this young lady goes, what do Tom Izzo and Mark Dantonio have to do with Larry Nassar? And I kept saying the same thing over and over again. I just don't think she got it. They don't have anything to do with Larry Nassar directly. They do have everything to do with Larry Nassar indirectly, and that they are involved. They are in a position of power in an institution that lacked institutional control. If all of these other people lacked control, why should Mark Dantonio and Tom Izzo, just because they're great coaches, not be held to that same standard? And then she asks a stupid question like, "Do you really think they knew about Nassar?" I'm like, "Did you not read what the fuck I just said?" No, no, they didn't know anything about Larry Nassar. That's not the fucking point here. The point is, this is a Michigan State problem, and if this happened, more can happen. So, with regards to Dantonio and Izzo, they both said some things that kind of made me tilt my head. Dantonio's was, "We'd never dealt with this before this summer," and Izzo's was saying that he doesn't know what the hell happened to Travis Walton. Those two were pretty close, okay? Izzo hired him to be a graduate assistant. He knows what happened to Travis Walton. That's a bad answer. So, do those two things alone mean that there's something wrong with those programs? No, of course not. But it's a little fishy, and I think it deserves some digging.
Well, it's funny because on Friday evening, you had Dantonio hold a impromptu presser that lasted about 3 minutes, and then you obviously had Izzo in his post game from the basketball game that was played. You had him obviously having to answer a lot of questions or being asked a lot of questions, and they almost switched roles to me because in the past, Tom Izzo has always been a pretty candid guy. He's never been a guy who has been really measured in his answers. And that's exactly what Dantonio has always been. And they kind of went the opposite routes from where I would have expected the two of them to go. That was the first thing that was odd. And in a weird way, I'm not sure how to read that when it comes to Izzo more so than Dantonio, because with Izzo, with him being a guy who has always been such a hard on his sleeve kind of a person and a coach, the fact that he was so calculated, it's one of two things. It's either he was advised by his any legal team involved with this to let things play out before anything is actually stated, or he knows that there is some sort of criminal wrongdoing that was covered up, and he is trying not to incriminate even more than has already occurred. And I don't know which one it is. I'm not trying to speculate that it's one or the other, but it was a very strange. It was a very strange tone to that press conference. And
so you're taking the proper way to go about this, because I think you need to be very careful. I think you need to be very careful to jump to defend Tom Izzo and Mark Dantonio at this point in time. I also think you need to be very careful to be calling for their jobs. Okay, because at this point, the way I'm seeing it, knowing what I know now about what happened at that university, I think it's 50-50 at this point. I hope we find out that Mark Dantonio and Tom Izzo are completely without blame in anything that went down or that has gone down outside of Larry Nassar at that school. I hope that's the case. I really, really do.
The weird thing with flipping back over to Dantonio for a minute, the weird thing about it, and I'll go back to the what you were mentioning, the comment that he made last year in regards to that very public case, which there obviously are still court proceedings going on for those three young men, former MSU players that were involved in that terrible sexual assault case. But regardless of him saying we hadn't handled this before or we hadn't experienced this type of a thing before, the thing that is odd to me is he, by all accounts, and everybody involved, and Ryan himself was tweeting out about this on Friday in regards to some of the things that were being churned up by this outside the lines piece. Mark Dantonio handled that situation with those three young men exactly the way it was supposed to be handled. As soon as Austin Robertson, who, again, that was ironic in itself that Austin Robertson then became part of a different thing, and he was kicked off the team as well, obviously. But the minute Austin Robertson opened his mouth and said something, Dantonio just said, look, stop talking. We're going to get this to the right. And he immediately went to the authority. He didn't go to Orlando K. Simons. He didn't go to Mark Hollis. He didn't go to somebody else involved in the athletic program. He went directly to campus police and the authorities and let them do their due diligence and take control of it, which is exactly how it's supposed to go. So I find it very odd if he would do that then, but if there was situations before that he... I can understand if like the very, very first time something happens, you don't necessarily go directly to authorities because it doesn't comprehend you. You immediately call Mark Hollis and say, hey, this is what's going on. But once it's happened once, if anything of that nature has ever happened, you know what the right avenue is to pursue. And he clearly did that last summer. So I find it very strange that if there has been these other instances that he would have been negligent in the way in which he handled it. It just doesn't. It's very. It does, something about it doesn't compute to me. It's very strange, and we'll find out. Everything's going to be fully uncovered in terms of the way the processes went and how everything was handled. But I just
that's the thing too.
There's some questions to be answered
in that situation. Mark Dantonio went above and beyond Title IX requirements.
Right.
Because here's the thing: Title IX on its surface is a wonderful thing. Mm-hmm. Like, let's protect women on campus. I get that. It makes complete and total sense. However, the way that Title IX rules go at universities hasn't worked, and it doesn't make sense. The procedures that are taken for a Title IX violation.
Sure.
Because what we could end up finding out is that we won't even use Dantonio. We'll just say Izzo. In every instance, Tom Izzo did everything that he needed to do to fulfill his Title IX obligation. But yet somehow, not enough was still done. Right? So that's where you get into legal wrongdoing versus ethical wrongdoing.
Yeah, that's the gray area there, yeah.
Right? And is ethical...
Well, it's not really that gray, but you know what I mean.
And is ethical wrongdoing enough for a guy in Izzo's position to lose his job? Because I think that's very subjective. I think a lot of people would argue yes, and a lot of people would argue no, and it's very tough to say that either person is wrong.
Yeah.
So, where we need to start in every campus across the country is to rewrite these Title IX procedures. Okay, if there's a Title IX violation, the first place you go is to the authorities. And I'm not talking about campus police. Fuck campus police. Campus police don't matter. Campus police answer to the university. They answer to the school president. And campus police can easily have things covered up.
Yeah.
Because of who you have to go to next. I'm talking about whatever city you're in, that police department. Go there.
I would also tell you this: if that is the case,
and then kick it up the ladder.
That would also speak to the not even negligence, the wrongdoing and attempts at cover-ups by the people up higher above Mark Dantonio in that particular instance, above Mark Dantonio at MSU. If he had followed the proper avenues previously and people tried to kick things under the mud, that wouldn't be on Dantonio. That would be on the people above him. And there's nothing that tells me that couldn't have been happening, because it very well could have been.
Sure.
The university wants to protect its reputation. So and that is not right. That is not correct at all. But
I just don't understand the thinking there. Because what better way to protect your reputation than to make sure that men on campus that are guilty of any sort of sexual violence or sexual assault or rape to ensure that those men are no longer allowed to attend your institution.
Oh, that sounds like the perfect reputation strengthener to me.
I mean, how this isn't fucking rocket science.
It's such a back-asswards way of thinking that clearly was going on around, the higher up and the higher powers.
Well, we can't let anybody know that there's sexual assault happening at our university.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on there, but it's not good. It's not good at all.
Things need to change.
They do. And look, I will say this: if things come out that lead to there needing to be even more changing of the guard at MSU, even more so than what I already believe needs to happen, if it becomes apparent that Mark Dantonio and Tom Izzo were actually involved in, I guess I'll say, the act of helping these cover-ups occur and the act of trying to get things thrown under the rug, then I love them both dearly as coaches, but they have to go. They have to go. If that is the case, you have to throw away your love affair of them as the deities that you thought that they were. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they are terrible people completely. Well, if it's extensive, then obviously that's a different story. But if it's one thing, like with the Travis Walton thing, right? If it comes out that Dantonio that Izzo did everything he could to try to stop or interfere with legal process or try to get Travis Walton off the hook or however you want to state it, then Tom Izzo is a god at MSU. And his career record as a coach will never change, but you can't have those people in power. You just can't.
And here's the one thing that I did find interesting about actually watching the Outside the Lines piece. There were, like I said, there were a couple of things that I pulled out of it that I thought, okay, this needed to be said, but it was very, very few and far between. And one of them was from the incident, I believe, that occurred in 2007 where the young lady committed suicide. You know which one I'm talking about?
Yes.
There were 4 football players that are still unnamed that were accused of gang raping this young woman. And she subsequently quit school and committed suicide. And the only evidence that we have that these 4 young men actually committed this crime was that she wrote it down in a journal or a diary, which is not evidence. And I would agree with the fact that that's not evidence. Okay, but what I did find interesting was that when some of these 4 accused players were interviewed by the police, and they showed the footage on the Outside the Lines piece. I don't know who he was because his face was blocked out, but he was a large white male, and he said he didn't know who the girl was. He'd never heard of her before. But he did get into some details about the culture in that Michigan State locker room where guys would nonchalantly walk around the locker room talking about, quote-unquote, running the train on women, laughing about it, having a good time. And here's the thing. Could that kid be lying to maybe cover his own ass? I suppose he could. But if that's something that's going on inside of Michigan State's locker room, that's on Mark Dantonio. You just can't have... I understand. Look, we went through the whole Donald Trump thing, and there's locker room talk, and then and talking about tits and asses, which we even do on this show, right? And we have a good time with it.
We try to.
But then there's things like that, where you know these guys are being serious, where you know these things are actually occurring, and there's a line that you don't cross. And if guys in Michigan State's locker room are able to just walk around and have those conversations, and then there's an accusation of a gang rape, I'm sorry, I think those two things kind of go together.
Yeah, they kind of do.
Now, who knows how much fact there is to that? That was just one part that I found interesting, to say the least.
Well, there's going to be a lot more findings here soon, and we're gonna know a lot more as I try to find the sweet spot in my mic.
There it is.
I think that's it right
It's
there.
on that side.
Yeah, there it is. It's really weird how one side is so much more hollow than the other. It's strange.
That's a condenser mic for you. You got to get used to it, Dave. All right, we did our work. Now we can play, right?
I think part of the problem is that this continues to. This is not the greatest mic stand for this, and I think it continues to spin inside of the secure spot.
You got to get one of these cradles, man.
I do. I absolutely do.
All right, we did our work. This isn't over yet, and we're going to continue to cover
far
this.
From it.
And I hope that I hope our listeners aren't getting sick of it, because this isn't going to stop. This isn't going to stop until we're satisfied, until I'm satisfied. And
the Bill Schuette investigation is going to have a lot to say.
And hopefully Michigan State's going to be the one that's going to turn this shit all around. Because if you think Michigan State's the only place this is happening, I think you're out of your mind.
I'll tell you what, it's been a rough, even outside the Larry Nassar thing, which is as horrific as you could possibly get, with everything that has come forward about the way that MSU has handled some of these situations. It's been a rough 10 days to be a Michigan State Spartan.
I can only imagine.
It really has. And I will say that you do have to separate yourself and separate. You can still be a fan of the sports team without and not seem like you're disinterested, like you don't care about what else is going on, because they are separate entities. Like, there's nothing bad about the current Michigan State basketball team. None of those guys have done anything. There's nothing wrong with those kids, right? Mm-hmm. So you can be a fan of the team and still want a lot of questions answered about what's going on the other side of things in regards to that program. And that's kind of where I've tried to have the separation, and it's difficult.
It's not easy.
It's very difficult.
Because I'm sitting here every time I see a Michigan State flag flying around somewhere, this is the first thing that comes to my head. And that's what's sad.
And it will right now. Yeah.
You're listening to Out of Bounds Detroit Sports. David Faze, absentee Mike Tripp, and myself, Dan Griffin. SportsRadioDetroit.com. Do not go away.
It's high time to dream of the sky. Make me believe that this place isn't plagued by the poison in me.
Hey, it's Jake Chapman from Pistons.com. You're listening to Out of Bounds Detroit Sports on SportsRadioDetroit.com.
We're pretty much ready to go here with this podcast.
What the hell is a podcast?
For Detroit, this is an all-in play for them. They gave up their first-round pick in 2018, and their only chance in Detroit to get a star player is through a trade. And now the Pistons, with Stan Van Gundy, in an important year for him, are all in on trying to make the playoffs.
All right. Welcome back. Out of Bounds Detroit Sports. David Faze. There is no Mike Tripp. And, of course, myself, Dan Griffin, invading your ear hole, as always. SportsRadioDetroit.com, Apple Podcasts, or wherever the hell you listen to podcasts. And please leave us a rating, a review, wherever the hell you're listening, and go to SportsRadioDetroit.com. Check out all the other wonderful content. I say it every show, it seems like now. It's not all about us, even though we'd like it to be, but there's more. There's a lot.
I mean, we're really just pretending to be modest.
It's true.
Generally speaking.
What you heard Woj there. The big deal that you wanted to talk about to start the show, but we had to do work first.
I wanted to talk about Ronda Rousey.
Going to the WWE?
Yeah, I'm kidding. I don't care.
I don't know. I'm a little intrigued. I don't care about wrestling, but you know, talk about a career that's fallen. Of course, she's going to make decent check of change. She's going to be all right.
She'll be fine. I don't really want to talk about Ronda Rousey, though, just so we're being clear. I don't really care.
Are you sure? You sure you don't want to talk about Ronda Rousey before we talk about the fact that Blake Griffin is your newest Detroit Piston? And Jeff's got a boner over it. Dave's got a quarter chub over it.
I don't know if Jeff does, to be honest. I'm having a hard time reading how he actually feels.
And I'm inside myself regarding this trade because I got to tell you something.
Well, that's all the time, though, Dan. That's not a new thing.
Because it's so counterproductive. I hate this trade. I hate it. For one thing, I've never liked Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin, to me, is another one of those players. He's just a loser. He's not a guy that wins. He's not going to... I don't look at Blake Griffin and go, wow, that's a guy that could carry a team to a championship. Because if he was that guy, the Clippers would have won a championship or at least gotten semi-close to one when they had their little big three. They never even got close.
Well, everybody thinks Chris Paul is a winner, and he hasn't really gotten anybody there either. He had plenty of talent around him multiple times, and he hasn't done anything.
But here's the difference between Chris Paul.
I can't wait till that Houston experiment fails miserably.
But here's the difference between Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, right? Blake Griffin is a guy that you look at and you go, what does he do? He scores points. So that's what Blake Griffin.
He's also a power forward who averages about 5 assists a game.
But Chris Paul is the quintessential distributing point guard.
Yeah.
Right? He easily was the best one of those in the game for a period of time. But I don't think anybody really looked at Chris Paul and went, "Oh, I'm going to look. This is going to be a guy. This is a guy that can carry me to a championship too." I don't think anybody ever looked.
I think people did. I think people did for a long time.
I think
there's a reason why teams like the Lakers, before they blew up and became shitty, I think there's a reason that Chris Paul was a big time trade piece for some teams.
But you always knew with Chris Paul that you needed pieces.
Well, with any pass-first point guard,
yes.
Absolutely you have to have pieces. Yes.
So that's the difference to me between Chris Paul and Blake Griffin. And to me, this trade screams counterproductivity to what I want to see the Pistons do.
Let me ask you something, though. Before we continue, what team wins with one guy? Who wins with one guy?
I don't think anybody wins with
that's what I'm
one
saying.
guy.
So if you're making the argument that Chris Paul needs some people around him as a first point guard, which is true, then yes, Blake Griffin and Chris Paul are completely different individuals and players, but Blake Griffin's going to need people around him too. So to say that he didn't carry LA to a championship isn't really fair, because there was plenty of talent and you could blame it just as much on any of the other guys too. You know what I'm saying? That's my point.
Anyway.
Yeah,
and I think you could probably say that about both of those two guys.
Yeah.
Because those were the two guys, along with DeAndre Jordan, that were supposed to be, that was their big three.
Yeah.
But I don't think any of them really performed the way that you would expect a big three, and I use the air quotes in that one, to perform in order to carry you to a championship.
I also think Doc Rivers is a horribly overrated coach, by the way.
Well, that could be.
I think that's part of it as well.
That could be.
He struck gold with 3 Hall of Fame players at the same time.
He doesn't blame it all on Blake.
It's not on Blake. It's on all of us. All right, we get it, Doc.
This trade to me, it's just counterproductive. To me, it screams desperation for Stan Van Gundy. He knows. I don't think he knows that he's on the hot seat with Tom Gores, because I don't think anybody's ever on the hot seat with Tom. I don't think that Stan Van Gundy was particularly afraid necessarily of losing his jobs, but I think he feels the pressure.
I'll tell you right now, there's only one guy in the NBA for sure that I would trade Stan Van Gundy for. Well, I shouldn't say trades him. I would fire Stan Van Gundy in a heartbeat if it meant I had a chance to go hire Brad Stevens. That's the guy. I think Brad Stevens is a fantastic basketball coach and has proven it already in multiple places in multiple ways. I think he's super innovative, and he gets the best out of all of his players, which is about as much as you can ask of a coach to do.
We get it. You like Stan.
I've always liked Stan.
And I
don't think he's done a phenomenal job. I'm not trying to back him and say he's some deity, but I don't think Stan has been horrendous.
But here's the thing. This trade to me,
better coach than he's been a GM.
I was going to say, I don't have an issue with Stan the coach most of the time, as long as he is, not hurting the locker room with his antics. And I think lately he kind of has been. But this trade to me is just another, I don't even know what adjective to use or what words to use. Was it one that he didn't consider enough? Was it one that was a desperate move to try and get this team to compete for a playoff spot again? Either way, I think Stan runs this team as president like he coaches. And that's a problem, because here's the thing. A head coach is supposed to be focused on the day-to-day of a basketball team, right?
Right.
You're supposed to be focusing game to game. As a president or general manager, you need to be focused on winning not only for right now, but positioning yourself to be able to win in the future. You have to consider both of those things. And I don't think that Stan has done a very good job of doing that at all. And I think this move speaks to that. Because what's been the issue with the Pistons? What's been my biggest issue with the Pistons? That issue is...
Haven't drafted well.
Well, not even... I'm just talking about what we see on the floor. Lack of identity. This team hasn't had an identity. I don't think adding Blake Griffin at this juncture helps that at all. Because there are going to be... Players are going to suffer from this. Now, in the what has it been? 3 to 4 hours since this trade has gone down, I've heard it go both ways, right? This is going to help Andre Drummond. This is going to hurt Andre Drummond. I'm in the school of thought this is going to hurt Andre Drummond. Because you cannot sell me for 1 second that somehow Blake Griffin is a stretch four. Okay, I know he takes a high volume of threes. He only shoots 35% from behind the arc.
Well, this is basically, if he continues on this is his first year really being a guy who steps out and takes threes on any type of regular basis. I just read a stat today that if he continues on his current trajectory, which is he's shooting about 35% off of around 6 attempts per game, if he continues on that path, he will shoot more threes this year than he has shot in his other seasons combined. He's not been a big shooter.
He shot 187 three-pointers this year. His highest other than that was last year at 113, and he had never shot more than 44 before that.
He will surpass his other seasons if he continues at 6 attempts per game.
But he only shoots 34% out there, which I'm not going to sit here and say that it's atrocious, right?
No, it's not, and part of that is him still learning his 3-point shot because it's not something he really did a lot of.
But Blake Griffin is a player that operates on the block. That's what he does. That's where he plays his game.
He yes and no. Yes, he is more of a post player than he is a perimeter player. I will say that for sure. However, he's also a guy that is able to put the ball on the floor and create his own shot if he needs to. That's another thing. Here's how I see this. You gave away a guy who you weren't going to re-sign in Avery Bradley. That has become evidently clear over the last month. The fit was just not there, and Avery was just obviously a much better fit with a guy like Kyrie Irving next to him, who is a dominant point guard, right? A dominant scoring first point guard. So you gave away that guy, no big deal. He was going to be gone, doesn't matter.
You just formed a fucking wall!
Gave away Boban Marjanovic, who cares? It's Boban. He was fun. He was a fun gimmick, right? The big deal, the big guy going the other way in this deal, obviously from the Pistons' perspective, is Tobias Harris, who's been very good for the Pistons this year, was pretty dang good last year as well. He's having a career season, and I think that at his absolute peak, and I know, I think that this year, his efficiency right now, I think is a little bit of an outlier. I don't think he's going to all of a sudden become a 40% three-point shooter for his career. I think he's having a remarkable season. And I think that Blake Griffin, if he wants to work on it, could be anywhere up towards 37, 38% from three. But he hasn't really done it before this year. He hasn't even attempted or tried to do it. So, I mean, if you look at Tobias Harris's trajectory from the 3-point line before this year, his numbers previously were not that much better than Blake Griffin's. They weren't. This 40% this year has been remarkable. But I think you got better in the current moment.
I do too. I won't disagree with that. I think the only thing. No, I was going to say I think you may have hurt yourself from a depth perspective, but really looking at this bench already, I guess that's really not even true.
You didn't really give up anything from your bench.
Here's the thing. I don't have a problem with what the Pistons gave away as far as players are concerned. I do have an issue with the first-round pick.
Me too.
Absolutely.
I don't like that.
I have a problem with that. And that's the thing. I feel like I don't like being in the business of having a team without an identity, mortgaging its future. Now, the argument is, well, Stan hasn't done very good with these draft picks anyway. Okay, fine, fair enough. But do you realize what kind of contract you just acquired? Like, that is the other thing. You moved backwards financially if you're the Pistons and what you're able to do. And you know, I've seen people on social media going, well, you know, Blake Griffin's a superstar. You know, maybe he'll get some of his friends to come play here, just like some of the other guys. Blake Griffin is not that kind of superstar.
Well, it doesn't matter. You can't afford it now anyway.
And that too. And Blake Griffin, at best, is a borderline superstar.
He's a top 25 player.
Fine. Wonderful.
Which is fine with me because you don't get those guys to sign here. You just don't. Those guys aren't signing here. That's the other thing that's been very prevalent in all these discussions about this deal that is 100% accurate. The Pistons right now, and really for a long time now, to be honest, are not a team that has been able to attract the top line players.
They never have.
They just don't come here. And so the only way you're going to get a guy like that, a guy in that conversation, is to make a deal for that guy. And it's not an easy deal to make. It's not easy to get a guy who I think is a legit top 25 player. It's not an easy deal to make. And they did that, and I have no idea how it's going to work or if it's going to work. But I will say this. The Pistons are a better team right now, I think, in the short term than they were 5 hours ago. And their biggest issue still, and it was the issue before this trade, it's going to be the issue after this trade until Reggie comes back, is their point guard situation is a mess right now. But I will say that with Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond up front, you basically need to, at all three of the other positions, you have to space the floor with shooters. So to me, I think the starting lineup that makes sense at this point, obviously other than the two guys that are written in for sure in Griffin and Drummond, would be Bullock at the 3, Kennard at the 2. I don't think there's any other option at the 2 at this point anyway than Kennard, and I think that was a big reason why you would trade Avery Bradley now. It's because Kennard is the guy.
That's the spot, if any, that you got worse.
The 2?
Yes.
Well, you got worse defensively for sure. I don't know that you got worse offensively because I think Kennard is a better offensive player in terms of being able to create for himself. I think he is a more gifted offensive player than Avery Bradley.
Piston fans up on your feet!
But Bradley is quite possibly the best perimeter defender in the NBA this year. Then an absolutely tremendous defender, and that's not going to change. And so you obviously decrease your defensive efficiencies with him out of the lineup. But then I think at the point guard position right now, if I'm Stan and you're looking at what your lineup's going to look like around Griffin and Drummond, I think the best option at the point, not because he's a true point guard, but because he's a guy who actually can shoot the ball a little, is probably Langston Galloway right now. Because Ish Smith doesn't work with that lineup. I have no issue with Ish Smith. Never have, never will. But he's not a starting point guard. He shouldn't be. He never has been. He's a very good backup who has a high motor and can get guys involved. But when you have two, twin towers down there now with those two guys, you got to have spacing. You got to space the floor with shooters, and Ish Smith is no shooter. So you got to throw Galloway in there because at least he can hit a 3. Ish Smith, you can't have a starting point guard that's shooting 21% from 3-point line. It can't happen.
Do you think this trade helps or hurts Andre Drummond? Because that's the big argument right now. I think it hurts him.
I honestly don't know. I genuinely don't know. Because the funny thing too, though, is Drummond's actually a better offensive player than DeAndre Jordan, which is obviously the guy that Blake Griffin just was just playing next to for the last number of years. And I think Andre can actually get himself some opportunities around the rim that DeAndre Jordan did not do. But there are similarities. This is the reason why I think it can work is because there are similarities between those two guys and the way that they play the game. Obviously,
DeAndre Jordan and Andre Drummond.
Andre Drummond, yes. And obviously Jordan's the better defender, although I do think Drummond has taken some steps that way this year as well.
Well, it depends. Which Andre Drummond do you get night to night?
Well, he's been pretty good recently. I will say,
because he's pissed about the All-Star snub.
I do think Andre will like, in all honesty, I think Andre will like having another guy next to him that is a legitimate threat night in and night out, that he doesn't have to bear the entirety of the brunt down on the block. I think that will actually help Andre from a from a standpoint of helping to accelerate his game. Because the other thing is, I think Andre will be more likely to try to have a little more help side defense and do some of those things when he doesn't think he's leaving another side of the floor completely open.
Well, it's not like Blake Griffin is some sort of prolific defensive power forward.
I'm not saying that, but who were you playing there before? You had Tobias. Harris, who's given up 3 inches to a lot of guys. And he's not. And Tobias is not a very good defender. That's one thing I will say. As efficient as he has been offensively this year, and last year too, he's not a good defender. He gets bowled over by people, and he gives up size, and people take advantage of it all the time.
That's because Tobias, as I've said for a long time, Tobias is a tweener, and Tobias is a guy that I think would be a very good sixth man on a lot of good teams.
Yeah.
I don't think Tobias Harris on a championship caliber squad is a starter. Or even a very good squad is a starter. So that's the thing. I don't have a problem with who the Pistons gave away. I dig all of that.
Sure.
Other than the first-round pick, and other than the fact that I am not sure about Blake Griffin's fit here. And that, now, part of that could be my bias that I have never liked Blake Griffin as a basketball player. I've always thought he was overrated.
Yeah, I don't think this helps that discussion at all.
It doesn't.
Helps this discussion.
It doesn't. I'm sure that it doesn't. I've always thought Blake Griffin was overrated in a lot of ways. He came into the league and was for the first. Let's see, how long has he been in the league now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. This is his 8th season. For 6 of those years, he was nothing but a dunk machine. That's all he was. Didn't do anything else. Didn't defend anybody. Couldn't shoot that well. He's gotten a little bit better over the past couple of seasons. Congratulations. But he's always struck me as that guy that is, as another one of those guys who's going to score you some points. He's not really going to help you win basketball games on a consistent basis. And the thing that tells me that are his win share totals. They're nothing to write home about. His win shares have averaged about 3 in his entire career. You can call that guy a superstar? I don't see it. I don't dig the trade because it screams desperation from Stan Van Gundy to get something going. And when you have that, that's something that has the potential to set your organization back. Now, I'm not saying this is on par with what we're looking at today, but the first thing you look to is what Joe D did in his last couple of years before leaving the Pistons. I don't think this is quite on that level of oversigning.
I don't think I can even come close to comparing those
Charlie
two things.
V. But no.
Well, and even the Chauncey deal, you could
paper,
include it in the bad moves Joe D made at the end.
On paper, you're right.
Yeah.
It's not close, but it's got that same feeling to it.
Not to me, and I'll tell you why. It's because, and again, this is where our the biggest difference here is the way that we differ in our opinions on Blake Griffin as a player. I think that's a big reason why this conversation is going 2 different directions. But you look at those guys when you talk about the guys at the end of Joe D's tenure. You look at the Chauncey for Iverson trade, right, which was weird in every way, shape, and form. Then you look at the one you're talking about. You're looking at signing Villanueva and Ben Gordon in the same offseason for a crap ton of money, which the sad part about the way the NBA has gone now financially is that those deals wouldn't look like anything now, which is crazy because they're stupid money all the time to me. But
Boban's making that much money,
seriously. and then as a third, and he was a third center last year, insane. But anyway. And then obviously the big one that Stan kind of tried to correct his first year here was the signing of Josh Smith, which was an absolute disaster from the very beginning. And Stan said, "Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get rid of that.
Jack up another 3, Josh." Clang.
Blake Griffin is, and it's not even close.
Settle down.
He is a far superior player to any of those guys.
Of course he is. I will admit that.
And I truly believe, and I think I said this already, and I know I said it to you, off mic before we started the segment. I truly believe that Blake Griffin's a top 25 NBA player. And those are the kind of guys that are hard to come by. And if you can get your hands on one, you try to do it. And I think Stan Van Gundy and Jeff Bauer and the team in the front office identified Blake Griffin as a guy that they felt could improve their roster and a guy they felt could be exciting for the fans. A guy, and look, I think that plays into it too. I think the fact that they've been having trouble getting people to the stadium and they're muddled. Look, they've lost 8 in a row. They're 4 games under 500 after starting the season 10-3. It's not good. It's a bad look. You got to do something. And it's been very clear in the last 5-6 days how frustrated Stan Van Gundy is right now with the roster that he had. And yes, I understand he put it together. I get it. But I think in his mind he saw some fits that it just appears weren't there, and so he was trying to correct them. And I think what I said to you was, I don't love the deal and I don't hate the deal, but I'm definitely more on the side of liking the deal because I think it has potential. I'm not worried about 4 or 5 years down the road. I'm worried about the next 2 or 3 years, and I think for the next 2 or 3 years, this team is better. The only problem I have is now if you want to put some people around them, I don't know how fiscally you do that because you don't have much left.
And that's the thing. I'm in the opposite school of thought of you. I don't give a shit about the next 2 or 3 years. You know why? Because you're not winning anything in those next 2 or 3 years.
Well, Stan will probably be gone if things go too haywire. He's going to be gone anyway.
I'll say it again. You got to do one of 2 things for me: compete for a championship, or show me that you're taking steps to compete for that championship when it's feasible. This is not a move that suggests that to me. This suggests to me, like you said, a desperation move to throw some butts in the seats at LCA.
I wouldn't use the word desperation. That's not what I was trying to mean by that.
I put that word in there.
That's fine. But I do think that the excitement level of a Blake Griffin, in terms of fan enjoyment, is something that you probably factor into this deal. Even though any general manager is probably not going to ever admit to that, because they're always going to say, "Oh, and it's about the product on the floor and blah blah blah," and it's about fit. And sure, there's all great things to say, but you're going to tell me that as a general manager of a basketball team or of a general manager of any team, that the product that you are putting out there for the fans is not important to you, because it has to be, right? You got to have fans show up for the games and pay for the tickets and buy the booze and buy the food and buy the pop and buy the memorabilia. These are all important things about running a franchise. So if you can get a guy that's going to create some excitement in that regard, you're probably going to do that.
Here's the other thing that we haven't even discussed yet. His inability to stay on the floor over the last 3 years. He's an injury liability.
He can be, yeah. And
probably the biggest reason I have an issue with this trade.
It's all right, you'll have John Lure back.
Yeah, right. Don't even start. Don't even start with the John Lure conversation.
That was, you know what? I will say this before you get. All kidding aside, when that move was made, I actually liked it because I thought for what they were trying to fill, I thought it was a really good fit, and he just fell apart. I don't know what happened to him. For half a year, he was awesome, and then he lost all confidence, and he's just terrible now. And now, actually, it's to the point where I was actually excited to hear that he was having season-ending surgery. I'm like, just start over, man.
Even a broken clock is right twice a day.
Anyway, go ahead.
The biggest problem that I have with this trade is because of the 2 things that I want to see my teams do: either compete for a championship or show me that they're taking steps toward competing for a championship in the future. I don't see this trade doing either of those things, because if you want to trade away Tobias and you want to trade away Avery Bradley, Boban's basically just a throw-in.
Pretty much.
I have no issue with those 2 guys going, but you did the opposite thing of what you need to do, because you gave away a first-round pick with that. You need to be using those guys to try to acquire either more young players or acquire draft picks. This Piston team should not be trading away draft picks right now. Now, I know what people are going to say. Jeff already mentioned it to me during our little text thing after the trade finally went down. Stan doesn't do a very good job with these first-round picks. That's another reason why I think Stan needs to be gone. I've basically had enough. I don't hate Stan. I rather enjoy his sound bites, but it's not working. It's not working, and this is another trade to me. I fully expect this to be a disaster. I do. That's just what I expect.
You say another trade. What other trade would you be referring to that you think were a disaster? Unless if you're referring to anything with Joe D, that's not.
No. I fully expect the Blake Griffin deal to end up being a disaster.
Okay.
That's what I expect.
I will say this. As bad as poorly as Stan has drafted, and although I will say this, I am not in the party that is so upset about the Luke Kennard Donovan Mitchell debate. Sorry. As great as Donovan Mitchell has been, I don't have an issue with Kennard. I think Kennard is going to be just fine. That one doesn't bother me at all. It's a couple of the other ones. It's and I don't hate Stanley, but would I rather have Devin Booker? Yeah.
How do you not hate Stanley yet?
I don't. You know why?
He is not an NBA basketball player.
Yes, he is. You know what he is? He's Marcus Morris. He just hasn't fully developed his jump shot yet.
He hasn't fully developed his Dave. Stanley Johnson couldn't hit Lake St. Clair from a dock.
He's 21 years old. He's a baby still. He's a freaking baby. I'm not ready to throw. And I will even go as far as say this. As much as I'm glad that Luke Kennard was not involved in this deal, which it sounds like was actually not from the Pistons perspective, but was on the table in the discussions because the Clippers really wanted him, and you could understand why you'd want a guy like that. He's young, controllable, and a potential really good two guard in this league. I truly believe that. I'm really glad the Pistons were adamant that they were not going to do that. I also, and I said this to Sam, I'm also very glad they did not give up Stanley Johnson in this deal. Because I'm not ready to give up on Stanley. He's a bench player. He's 100% a bench player.
You've got to be the only Piston fan in America that's not ready to give up on Stanley
you know what
Johnson.
It is? It's that it goes back to what I just said. People are pissed off about what the Pistons don't have because of Stanley. You don't have Booker, who you'd love to have. Would I love to have Devin Booker? Sure. Would I rather have Devin Booker than Stanley Johnson? Yes. But am I pissed off that Stanley Johnson has not fully developed yet? No. And maybe I'm just more patient than people. That's fine.
I guess. I feel like I know what Stanley Johnson is.
I definitely don't think Stanley's ever going to be what I hoped he would be.
He's a guy that by the time his NBA career is over, it's either not going to be. He's either not going to be in the league that much longer, or he's going to be on the ass end of somebody's bench for the rest of his career. I just don't see anything in Stanley Johnson. I understand he's a decent perimeter defender. There are things that he does serviceably, but it's not like I look at Stanley Johnson and go, well, it's okay that he only shoots 9% because he plays defense like Ron Artest. Like, that's not what I see in Stanley Johnson. What I need from Stanley Johnson to be a serviceable NBA player in my eyes is to continue to play the type of defense that he does. And I don't know, make 38% of his shots? Or at least feel like he's making that many of his shots? I mean, every time I see Stanley get the ball and spot up for a shot, I just know he's going to miss. I'm like, there's no way this is going in. And then when it does, I'm surprised.
He's pretty good at the corner threes.
Okay, so he can be Bob Sura the rest of his career.
Yes, a much bigger, blacker Bob Sura.
And better defender. I'm happy. I will say this, Dave. I am very, very happy that there is somebody in the world who hasn't given up on Stanley Johnson, and you're the guy.
Well, I don't think Stan's given up on him either, or else he wouldn't be on the team.
Well,
he would have been included in this deal somehow.
But we see how Stan does putting a roster together.
Well, we'll see.
Not very good.
Maybe Stan's planning on trying to trade Stanley for a point guard. I look, this team...
I would trade Stanley Johnson for a bag full of old wrapping paper right now.
I hate wrapping paper, so I would not do that.
It's just, I used wrapping paper.
What good is that?
It was used as somebody's cum catcher. Anything. Give me anything.
That shit's not very absorbent, so that seems like a poor choice.
And you can coat the coffee table with it.
Sure.
So you can kind of throw that wad wherever you want.
Yeah, you could also just use newspaper. It works too. Anyway, we got so off the rails. But I also believe that this team's woes, as much as, like I said, I do believe they got better today, I still think this team just needs Reggie back. That's very clear. It's been very evident since he went down how important he is to what this team does.
They got better, but what's the end game?
I don't know. I didn't know what the end game was before either. So
you gonna middle some more? That's what I'm tired of. I don't want to see that anymore. I'm done with that.
Well, even if this is status quo, I'd rather be mediocre with Blake Griffin than with the other guys. I mean, if that's what we're at, I guess I'll leave it there.
That's very delightful.
It's really not, though.
Dave loves the trade. I hate it.
I don't love the trade.
Okay, Jeff loves the trade.
Does he?
I think he does. We'll find out on Thursday.
He definitely. I think he likes it. He's definitely more on my side than yours, but I don't know if he loves it.
Then we've got every school of thought. I hate it. Jeff loves it, and you're in the middle.
I did enjoy the fact that the stat that Jeff threw out there a few hours ago about the Pistons haven't had a player with a career average of 20 points or more since Jerry Stackhouse.
Yeah, and how'd the Pistons do with Jerry Stackhouse as their quote-unquote superstar?
Well, not great because the rest of the team sucked.
That's right.
Yeah. I don't think this team sucks. This team does not suck.
Well, let's put it this way. They have sucked.
Well, they've been bad recently. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I don't know what the hell is going on. Well, I know. Actually, I do know exactly what's going on. You lost Reggie, and you started trying to, even more so than you were before, started trying to run offense through Avery Bradley, which is never going to work. He's not that player. And then he also was hurt, so you're trying to run offense through a injured Avery Bradley. Well, that sounds fantastic, doesn't it? And I think one of the biggest weaknesses in the lineup for the Pistons all year.
All he left was a batch of hepatitis on the toilet seat.
Even though Tobias has been playing power forward, kind of going back and forth, you didn't have a power forward. You had two tweeners that were playing next to each other. Now you have a legit power forward, and I don't have an issue, not because I think he is some sort of that he is going to be a championship caliber 3, but with the lineup as it stands with Drummond and Griffin, I think Reggie Bullock can be just fine. And I'll tell you why. Because he moves around a lot. He moves without the ball. He gets himself open. He can hit threes, and he can defend. And that's all you need.
In an attempt to salvage the season.
Well, that's clearly what this trade is to do, is to win now and to try to win something now and not fall out of the playoffs and lose.
And I hate that. Because what are you salvaging? You salvaging a 4 seed? You salvaging a 5 seed?
Well,
wonderful. Well, at this point,
just get in and see what happens.
At this point, it'd be get in it. This isn't the NHL, Dave. You don't get in and see what happens. This is an NBA that's dominated by 3 to 5 great teams, and nobody else has a shot. So
nobody in the East is winning this year.
I don't like the idea of salvaging it, because salvaging a season for anything short of competing for a championship doesn't make sense to me. Maybe that's where I'm disconnected.
Got to get revenue. Get revenue from playoff appearances.
I don't care what kind of money this team makes.
You don't care, but they do. That's my point.
Well, they should care what I think, and they should care what fans think.
Fans want to watch the playoffs.
But if fans were smart, they would want more.
But they're not, Dan.
I know that.
This is the point.
I don't know if I'm the weird one or if everybody else is
crazy. You're not weird. You're just... You've gotten to a point where you have tried to be so above what the reality is, and it just isn't. You can wish all you want for people to be on par with you in your thought process, which is not wrong, by the way, but they're just not. That's not the casual normal fan. The casual normal fan wants to watch something that they think is exciting. I think this team with Blake Griffin can be very entertaining. And they want to watch their team get to the playoffs, even if they get there and they fucking lose. It doesn't matter. They'll be upset that they lost, but they'll be happy that they got to watch in the playoffs. That's the bottom line.
But don't they ultimately want it? Don't all fans ultimately want a championship?
Yes,
because there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it.
I think there are some fans that are in our atmosphere, but most are not. And maybe that's a problem. I don't know, but that's just the reality.
This is the wrong way to do it. This is the wrong way to start competing for a championship. Mortgaging your future.
To me right now, the biggest problem that this deal creates. I think this deal, in its essence, is actually a good deal. The biggest problem is the contract that it comes with, because it hamstrings you a bit to be able to build around. Because I think you have Drummond and Griffin. If you had financial ability to then build a little bit around those guys, then it's not a problem at all. Then it's actually really good. But you just don't have a lot of financial flexibility to go get another. You can't go get a star wing, or you can't go get a. But here the thing is. That's the only position now, starting lineup wise, that is an issue. Is still a little bit of the wing, but if Kennard comes into his own a little faster, then it's really not a huge problem.
What the fuck is going on?
If Kennard comes in for Avery, starts now with Avery gone, and Kennard averages 10 to 13 points a game, that's more than enough from him right now, because you're gonna get 20 some more often than not. You're gonna get about 20 a night from Griffin, sometimes more. You're gonna get your 15 to 20 from Drummond, and then if you get 10 to 15 and somewhere in that range from Kennard, which I think is incredibly doable, especially because of the fact the guy can hit threes, and you're gonna rack up points just from doing that. Then the biggest weakness right now is the point guard position. It was before the trade. It's still gonna be until Reggie comes back, and then you see what you got, and that's where we're at. This is a league that is very dependent on having a decent point guard, and I think Reggie is more than capable of being that starting point guard, but you don't have him right now, and it hurts. You see what this team is without a true point guard. It's not good.
I have low expectations.
But I also think that an underrated part of this deal, before we get off this, the underrated part of this deal, and I was saying this to you as well off mic, I do think that Blake Griffin is a much better facilitator than he gets credit for. So you can run some sets where Griffin is kind of your de facto, power point guard guy, not because he's bringing the ball up the court and leading the offense from the top of the key, but this is where you can run guys off screens and you can run plays for guys with Blake Griffin being able to pass out of the post because he's actually very good at it. Him and Drummond are both good passers from the block. They really are. And that's an underrated part of it.
The problem is Andre's usage has already gone down. It had already gone down this year, but it had been okay because Andre had done a decent job of distributing the ball from the post, as you're saying.
Yeah.
So it didn't really hurt him at all. His usage is going to go down even more now with Blake Griffin being there. Now, how does that affect Andre mentally? Because we already know he's weak. He is sharp and soft between the ears.
They really don't run a ton of sets for Dre, though. These points are still going to come about the same way they have. You know what I mean? He's not a guy that they don't run a ton of post play. He's better from the post now than he was last year, but he's not like it's not like he's Karl Malone down there. You know what I mean? Or Shaq or one of those types of guys. That's not his game. I still think his points are going to come about the same way they have. So I don't really know that his gameplay is going to change all that much. We'll see. I don't know.
He's not going to get the touches. He's not going to get the touches the way that he's been.
He'll have to share.
And how does that affect him? Because we know that Andre Drummond is mentally weak between the ears. He is. Like that's not up for debate. We know that he is. Some guy, somebody steps on his toe and he cries for 5 minutes before he, finally maybe gets back into the ball game and starts to play. If he doesn't completely quit on that game.
Well, that was just because he couldn't breathe before.
Oh, okay. Whatever. I think it hurts Andre Drummond. I think it hurts this team's future, and I think those are the only two things that really matter.
I genuinely just don't like giving up the draft pick. That's the only thing that I have any real issue with.
That's part of it. I don't like the idea of Stan Van Gundy trying to masquerade this trade as somehow the Pistons are going to try to win something now, because as you said. This is a win-now trade. Win what? Win what? I mean, that to me is the biggest thing. Oh, Jesus Christ. Playoffs.
I'm just being real with you, man. Got to start somewhere.
And that's the ceiling. Winning a playoff series. That's the ceiling.
I don't know. I don't know what the ceiling is. I will not have any clue what the ceiling is for the team as it's now constructed until I see them play a little bit. Because I have no idea what it's going to look like. I don't.
Fair enough.
We know what Blake Griffin's done in his career and how he's played. And he's played, like I said, with a guy that is similar in a lot of ways to Andre Drummond. But we have not seen him play with Andre Drummond. We haven't seen him play with the other guys in the lineup. And we have never seen him play for Stan Van Gundy. And I have no idea how Stan Van Gundy is going to think is the best way to use him. So we'll see. I'm open-minded about it, I guess I'll say. I don't really have expectations one way or the other. I'm just going to watch. I'm going to let it play out and see how it works.
I'm looking at the Sixers and I'm going, I just want to do that. I want to do that. That's what I want to do.
Dude, they bottomed out for like 12 years.
Because they did it wrong.
They were terrible. Yeah, that's a problem.
They were piss poor at evaluating a lot of talent.
Well, but here's the other problem. If we're talking about that Stan Van Gundy has not been a great drafter.
That's why Stan needs to go.
Is that really what you want to do?
That's part of it, though. Stan cannot oversee the process 2.0 that I want the Pistons to do. Like the Sixers have done.
Maybe we just got to have Bob Quinn run all the franchises in Detroit.
I don't know who it's going to be. It's not going to be me.
God help us all.
The Sixers, they got the right idea. That's how you do it. That's how you win when you're not Miami or New York or L.A. or Chicago.
Yeah, but then they still drafted Markelle Fultz.
I understand that.
God can't even shoot.
They didn't evaluate
You're
well.
A point guard who I don't even understand how he got so over evaluated. It wasn't just I know that they picked him first, but it's not like they were the only team that had Markelle Fultz evaluated highly, and I don't get it. I genuinely don't get it.
Markelle Fultz basically, no matter who was drafting, would have gone 1 or 2. It was him and Lonzo, and they're both terrible.
Best player out of this draft, in my opinion, right now, is probably going to wind up being the guy who may have actually gone first if Boston hadn't traded, and that's Jason Tatum.
What I'm kind of starting to realize is, I really just think when it comes to drafting in those top 2 to 5 spots, just don't take a point guard. Just go with the biggest athletic, raw freak you can find.
The only way you take a point guard is if you have one of those generational guys, and you will know that guy.
You will. And
if there's an Isaiah Thomas there, you take that.
And typically those point guards are oversized. Like they're not a guy.
Oftentimes,
they're not a guy that is built like a traditional point guard. But yeah, no, I think. The top 3 players in the draft.
Take the wing or the...
Every time.
Yeah.
Every time. Or a freak power forward.
Because how many teams that are on the borderline right now are like that stud wing away from being legit, right? It's like always the guy that you need. It's almost every time.
Almost everybody.
Yeah.
That's the premier position in the NBA.
It is because it's a focal point of an offenses now. It's the connection between it quite literally is the connection between the front court and the back court, and it's that pivotal position. If you get that star in that spot, you are so set up to build around that guy and be really good. So yeah, I agree with you 100%. That's like I said, I think Boston took the best player. I genuinely do. I think Jason Tatum is probably going to be the best player out of that top 10 of the draft.
And the other thing to take away from this, I love the process. I love the idea of what the Sixers want to do. I don't necessarily love how they've executed it, because there have clearly been times where they have gotten it wrong with guys like Nerlens Noel and Jahlil Okafor. They've missed. Yeah. They've missed pretty badly. But the idea was correct. And that's what I want the Pistons to do. That's what I want them to be. Not going out and acquiring an injury-ridden Blake Griffin on a ridiculous contract and mortgaging their future to do so. That doesn't look good to me.
I do think that the Clippers side of this is really funny, though, by the way. The whole, how, like, I get that you have to, because of Chris Paul leaving, you kind of have to try to hitch your wagon a little bit to Griffin and get him to stay. But they went so far overboard with the whole, like, we're going to show you what your jersey retirement will look like. You're going to be a Clipper for life. We're going to have the announcer come over and tell you.
We have actual audio of Blake Griffin as a Clipper over the past season. See ya!
and then you ship him out 6 months later. It's insane. Again, it's the business of professional sports, but you would think that at least in the very short term, again, I think anything like this always ends up blowing over in the long run, but I think in the short term, there will be a few guys that will probably be turned off by the idea that when they get their whining and dining done by the Clippers, if that happens, are going to be a little turned off when they have to look at you. They look you in the eye and they give you all these promises. And you say, well, you promised Blake he'd be here forever, and you basically showed him his jersey retirement, and then you dealt him. So how am I supposed to believe you that I'm not going to come here and be here for 3 months? You're going to deal me off for some prospects.
By the way, the Clippers, in the way that they have operated, when they had their quote-unquote big three, speaks to everything that we just spoke about regarding that wing player. Was that not the piece they were missing?
Yeah. They tried a few different guys.
That's where you start. That's why I love... If they do a couple of more things and they get a couple of more things right, that's why I love a team like the Bucks. They've got Giannis, who's technically listed as a power forward, but let's be honest, he's a wing player. He's a small forward.
You know what he is? He's the hybrid anomaly is what he is. Most guys that are the hybrid slash tweener.
He's got because
he's long and he's
got the skill set of that wing player that you need.
You know what? You know what he is?
And that's a team that I think is close.
He's the perfect type of tweener because he's more geared towards the four as opposed to and plays both positions as opposed to a guy who is more geared towards the three, but you're trying to force him into being a four. You know what I mean? When you're trying to force a guy to play up inside and stuff, it oftentimes does not work out very well.
But at the same time, if Milwaukee goes out and drafts a four or acquires a four,
he can play a three. Yeah,
he can do nothing but play the small forward. It's what I love about the Milwaukee Bucks.
He still needs to learn to shoot a little better, especially if they make him a full-time three, which I don't know if that's going to happen. He still needs to work on his shot a bit, but he does so many other things that he can overcome that.
Well,
unlike Markelle Fultz, who cannot overcome that.
Giannis doesn't. I don't think he ever needs to be able to be a distance shooter. I don't think he ever needs to be able to knock down threes because his mid-range game isn't bad.
No, he's decent there.
He drives, and the other thing that he does is he does that thing that Miami and Cleveland alike have LeBron do from time to time. That point forward spot.
Yeah.
Brings the ball up the floor, distributes the ball well. I fucking love Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's probably my favorite player in the league right now. And Milwaukee is a piece or two away from being able to figure that thing out and being a serious competitor in the East, especially when you consider the fact that LeBron's not getting any younger. That team Cleveland's in shambles.
Are you sure he's not? Because he might be a freak. I don't know how he's aging. But
LeBron?
Yeah.
I think you've seen LeBron.
He's slowed down a little bit.
A little bit. Not enough for us to really notice yet.
Efficiency-wise, he's still right at the top of his game.
Of course he is. But Giannis is the next LeBron, in my opinion. I don't think he'll ever be that good. But could you see Giannis Antetokounmpo in the next 3 to 5 years maybe being the best player in the league?
Well, I could. You know what I would really be curious to see, which we're not going to get a chance to see, I think, ever. I really would like to see what Kevin Durant would be on a team where he does not have a dominant point guard. Like a guy who dominates the ball. Obviously, Russ is down. Although, let me put it this way. Golden State is such an anomaly of a team, first of all.
Here's a fun one for you.
And then before that, he played with one of the most ball-dominant point guards in the game in Russell Westbrook. So
here's a fun one for you. It's just a fun hypothetical that maybe the listeners will enjoy as well. Maybe the NBA meatheads out there. How about if you put KD with a guy like Porzingis? You tell me that wouldn't be fucking fun to watch?
that would fit just fine.
Set KD to the Knicks. Do you need a point guard in that situation?
I don't want to do that to Kevin Durant. I want to send Porzingis somewhere else with Kevin Durant. I don't want Kevin Durant to have to deal with fucking bullshit.
All right, let's put Durant and Porzingis in Dallas.
Cool.
You good with that?
Sure.
That'd be fun. I would love to see those two guys on the floor together. These two lanky, athletic freaks that can play interchangeably with each other. Like, throw positions out the window with those two guys on the floor, right?
Like, if you had Porzingis laying down, holding on to, like, stretched all the way out, holding on to Durant's foot, and him stretched all the way out, they might go basket to basket. It's insane how long those guys are.
That'd be fun. I don't know why. I don't know why that one just popped into my head.
You know why? Because that's something Mark Cuban would totally try to do.
No dominant point guard.
No.
But I don't know that you need one.
I would really like to see what Durant would be without a point guard who, with a point guard. You know what? You know who a point guard we've talked about on the show already tonight for multiple reasons. A guy who I think would work perfect with Kevin Durant is fucking Chris Paul
and Porzingis.
Look at that big three. That big three probably wins a championship.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Especially, they would definitely come out of the East.
Yes.
There's no question about that.
But if they're in Dallas, they'd be in the West.
Well, that's true. Okay, so let's put them somewhere in the East. Where'd be a good spot for them in the East?
Orlando.
I was gonna say Miami.
Okay, either one. You know what? You put them in Miami with Eric Spoelstra as their coach, they're definitely winning a championship.
There's just no doubt.
He's a super underrated coach, by the way.
No, he really is.
Very, very good. Very, very good coach.
You remember?
You know what? He's another guy. If Miami wants to give up another coach at the Pistons, I'd take him in a freaking heartbeat.
Well, we say where do you think Spoelstra ranks? Because I think we're all in agreement that Pop's the best. There's no doubt that Pop's the best.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about Kerr. I think Kerr's a good coach, but he also has 4 of the best players in the league. So I don't know how well you put
him in that Phil Jackson ilk.
I think he's a better actual X and O's coach than Phil. Honest to God, I do.
But okay, so wait a minute. Can we actually say this without being crucified? Maybe that Steve Kerr's actually a better overall coach than Phil Jackson? Because here's what Phil Jackson did really well: manage the egos. Right? We know that.
Yep.
Which is not a small thing.
No, it's not. When you got egos as big as the ones he dealt with, yeah, it's not small at all.
That's true. But it feels like Steve Kerr manages the egos almost just as well, right? When you're able to have guys like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant and Draymond Green.
Well, you know what the sad part is? I think Green is the biggest ego of the group.
I'm sure he is,
which is hilarious.
And you're able to manage those well.
Yeah,
and you already said you think he's a better X's and O's coach.
I do.
Than Phil Jackson.
Personally speaking.
Make him a better coach than Phil Jackson.
I think he makes adjustments. Oh, man, that's tough. That's a tough one.
It's tough to know.
That's a tough one.
Phil Jackson had 2 of the 5 best NBA players of all time through his entire career. So it's tough to know what Phil would have been without him.
At any given time, he had 3 different ones that are probably top. They're probably all top 5 to 7 all time.
You're including Shaq?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of the greatest 3 centers of all time, and then 2 of the best shooting guards of all time in the NBA at any time in his career.
Well, Shaq, in my humble opinion, was the most dominant player the NBA's ever seen from a physical perspective.
Yeah, I think so.
Nobody could touch Shaq, which gave him. But here's the thing: he didn't manage those 2 egos very well towards the end, because there was that big rift in LA, and it was Kobe or it was Shaq. And they went with Kobe.
Yeah.
So
and it worked out okay. They won a couple more titles after that.
They did, but it never should have ended.
No.
It never should have ended.
What was I going to say? Oh, you asked about Spoelstra. It's kind of where we got in this conversation. Can I cheat a little bit on this question?
Okay.
Rather than giving him a legit ranking, because I'd really have to run through this. I'd say he's absolutely in the top 5, without question.
I don't think there are a ton of coaches in the NBA right now that I look at and I go, I got to have him over anybody. I think there's Pop, I think there's Steve Kerr, and I think there's Eric Spoelstra, and I think that's it. Off the top of my head,
I threw one other guy out there earlier already. That's Brad Stevens.
That's true.
I think legitimately Brad Stevens, to me, and maybe I'm weird, but I think Brad Stevens legitimately is a top 5 NBA coach. I really do.
I don't think
he hasn't proven me to be wrong yet.
I don't think most people would disagree with that.
He's done a fantastic job.
Let's get Chappie on the phone and ask him.
We'll have to. You know what? After we see a couple of games with Blake in here, maybe beginning of next week or something, we'll have to get Chappie in here to get a little refresher on the deal and talk about what his opinion is on it. See where we're at.
I bet he loves it.
Well, I think Chappie's about like I am, which is in terms of I like excitement, and this is definitely going to be exciting. I don't know if it's going to work, but it'll be exciting. He's pretty realistic, dude. Chapman's pretty realistic and pretty.
That depends on what your definition of work is. Will it work? Is he going to win? Is he going to win the Pistons championship? Fuck no.
Just get off that. It doesn't. That's.
I can't.
We're not even in that atmosphere right now.
I gotta win a championship, or build toward one.
Well,
this deal does neither of those.
Move to Golden State then.
No.
Move to Oakland.
Before we end the show, I did want to bring this up. At least this. Well, first of all, I'm just gonna give this one a short mention. Indians finally ditching Chief Wahoo off of their uniforms.
Yeah,
slow down.
Yeah, but next year.
I know. Like, why? Why? Because they can't pull all the merchandise out of the shop.
I think that. Yeah, I just found it hilarious. They're like talking about how the reasoning is that it's no longer a appropriate thing to have on. But you're still going to play an entire season with memorabilia floating around with it anyway.
So stupid.
I mean, whatever.
It's always been the most offensive logo in sports.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can talk about the Redskins and their name, but the Redskins logo isn't nearly as offensive as Chief Wahoo. Not even close.
True.
It's just a Native American head. It's a normal looking head, but Chief Wahoo is just fucking cartoon, stupid. And not to mention, Chief Wahoo is like legitimately red. Like, that's so. It's like as red as the bill on your Red Wings cap.
Yep.
It's just asinine. And the other thing was, we haven't discussed the Super Bowl a whole lot, and there's a reason for that because I don't give a shit. But the other reason, but we are going to bring up something semi Super Bowl related, and that is this fiasco with Tom Brady and WEEI in Boston.
Yes.
Did you hear the audio?
We listened to it earlier before we started.
Oh, I did play it for you
because I hadn't heard it.
What was the guy's name?
I don't think you had heard it either, right?
No, I hadn't. Well, I know I had heard it.
Okay.
But Alex Reimer of WEEI in Boston. First of all, this is a show that Tom Brady goes on every week. Yep. Has a conversation with these guys every week.
Yep.
And Alex Reimer from WEEI was watching the little what the hell is this thing? Like a little YouTube reality show involving Tom Brady or something?
Yes.
Is that what it is?
Tom versus Time.
Well, that's already stupid, and it's something I would never be interested in watching. I'm sure Jeff's probably watched each episode about 6 times and masturbated.
I don't even think it was multiple episodes. I think it was one thing. I think it was like a one-time short movie type deal, documentary, almost like a 30 for 30 type of production, sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm sure Jeff's watched it on a loop. I'm sure he goes to sleep to it with his pants off. Whenever Alex won't touch his wiener, he goes to this.
Well, I mean, Jeff goes to sleep with his pants off every night just hoping. But,
Anyway, Alex Reimer was watching this, and he decides that he's going to make, an unsavory comment about Tom Brady's daughter here.
What'd you think? That was fine.
Hold on, wait a minute. There's something else playing here. What is this mess? Anyway, here we go.
Just fine? Come on. All right, I thought the first scene was so staged, where Brady's like in the kitchen, his kid's being an annoying little pissant. Like,
he called his daughter a pissant.
Yeah, I mean, I already hate that audio clip just because the quality was terrible. Is that just because it was pulled that way, or is that actually how that show sounds?
No, it was just pulled that way.
Okay, that makes me feel a little better.
Yeah, it was
pretty sad.
I couldn't find any better audio of it than that. But then Tom Brady goes on the very same show that he always goes on every week, and he wasn't very happy. He was very upset.
You know, I don't. I do want to say something. I mean, I don't want to get into the
Kirk and
documentary
Callahan.
much, but I did. You know, Stacy had told me that someone had made a comment about my daughter or something like that.
Yeah. Tom, we were just talking about it. It was Alex Reamer, and Jerry and I talked about it Friday. It was a stupid thing to say. We destroyed him for saying it. You can say whatever you like. Go ahead.
Kissing his ass.
Well, I think that, you know, I've tried to come on this show for many years with, and showed you guys a lot of respect. I've always tried to come on and, you know, do a good job for you guys. So, you know, it's very disappointing when you hear that, certainly with my daughter or any child. You know, they certainly don't deserve that. So.
Oh, no, Tom, no question.
Yeah.
Please don't hang up on us, Tom!
On Friday, stupid thing to say. He was suspended for it. He should be. There are certain things I think you understand. As a professional athlete, you're going to be criticized for what you do or on or off the field as an individual. But for a kid to be criticized is unbelievably stupid. There's no defense.
Shut up.
Yeah. So, I'll obviously evaluate whether I want to come on this show again. So I really don't have much to say this morning.
That's fine. I understand. That's totally fine.
I will,
it's okay, Tom.
Maybe I'll speak with you guys some other time.
Absolutely fine. We understand.
Have a good day.
All right, Tom. You too.
Oh, just kissing his ass. I think that was the most annoying thing about this whole damn thing.
Way to go, a-hole!
These guys want to kiss Tom Brady's ass so much. Oh, we're so sorry, Tom. We can't. We've suspended our guy. I think first of all, I think Tom Brady was a little bit of a bitch about the whole ordeal.
Was he a whiny little pissant?
A little bit. Because here's the thing: Alex Reamer to me was being humorous. He was being entertaining.
I think it's kind of silly that he got suspended for it, to be honest with you.
I do too. You know why? Because if there's one thing that I know about kids, often they're whiny little pissants. So I don't understand. First of all, why? First of all, Tom Brady didn't even hear it. Somebody had mentioned it to him, and he goes on this show, and these guys and Kirk and Callahan are just kissing his ass. Oh my God, we're so sorry, Tom. Please come on our show again. We totally understand. You could tell they were shitting their pants over this. If Tom Brady doesn't want to come on your show anymore, who fucking cares? What difference does it make? Well, you don't get your weekly interview for Tom Brady to come on and say nothing, just like his head coach. What? It's just this whole thing is just so stupid. Oh, God, Tom Brady, just go back to not drinking another Coca-Cola again for the rest of your life.
I don't know
if you have a different opinion on that.
No, I mean, I don't really have an issue with Brady defending his kid. It's his kid. I get it, but I do think, and I also don't have an issue with him deciding in this particular moment that he didn't want to be on the show. What was this, yesterday? I think.
Yeah.
Didn't want to do his weekly spot as normal. Okay, fine. That's fine. But I don't think that Alex Reamer said anything, terribly overly terrible about. It's not like
he called his daughter the C word or something.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not. He didn't go overboard. He called her a whiny little pissant. If the only thing that here's the thing, I guarantee you she was being whiny. And they're kids. Kids do this. If the only issue is that he called her a pissant, that's pretty weak, right? Could have called her a lot of other things. I
gotta evaluate whether or not I want to come on this show anymore.
It got very overblown. And it all has to do with the fact that it's Tom Brady and the Patriots are going to the Super Bowl again. That's it. It's that simple. It's just stupid.
And then these turds take the air. I totally understand, Tom. Take all this. It's like they got dumped by a girlfriend that's way hotter than them. It's like
they're trying.
I'm so sorry, baby. Just take all the time you need. Take all the time you need. I don't want you to be upset with me anymore.
I just know how I feel about us. Totally understandable. Totally understandable. It's okay. That's okay. I totally understand.
Please just take your time and just make sure that you talk to me before you make a decision, okay? It's just like only in Boston could something like that happen. Did I have anything else? We were going to talk about the All-Star festivities, were we, over the weekend?
No, I had mentioned it as a possibility, but there's really not a lot to say.
No, there's not.
There never is with those things.
Just nobody cares. Nobody watched a combined 20 minutes of it.
I watched more of the NFL or of the college Senior Bowl.
Well, you're just sick.
I think it was just as good.
You're probably right. All right, we're going to terminate this podcast. Jeff will be back with us on Thursday. We'll get his opinion on how hard his boner is for Blake Griffin.
He probably got just as hard hearing Tom Brady be stern to somebody.
Well, that's true. And he was probably very, very upset with Alex Reamer's comments about Tom Brady's daughter. I mean, when you make fun of the daughter of Jesus.
Oh, yeah, you stand up for her, Tom. You stand up for your daughter.
Out of Bounds Detroit Sports, David Faze, absentee Mike Tripp. By the way, we are going to get a blow up to all of you for when you're not here. I got to order one.
Why me? Why just me?
Well, because you're a Monday and Thursday staple on this show, so when you miss shows, it seems like you're gone a lot more often.
Absent?
Yes.
Yeah.
SportsRadioDetroit.com. Out of Bounds Detroit Sports. And we are out of there.